everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's your host Joe Senior, and we've got Ryan McDonald here with me today to talk all about Space Wolves. Say hello, Ryan.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So Ryan's been a Space Wolf player for a long time. He actually won the Carnage League last year with Space Wolves as well. So he knows a fair bit. I'm also pretty into my Space Wolves, been playing a lot of Stormlance recently. Had a few podiums with that. We do have second placed ITC in the UK from last season, Chris Kierden, on our team as well. Unfortunately, he couldn't make the video today, but hopefully me and Ryan will be able to sort you out with all the Wolfie info. So we're just going to run through the 3 detachments that we think are the best way to play Space Wolves now. Obviously, we just had the big update, and Champions of Russ has just become actually good. Instead of absolute trash.
Very well.
So it's really exciting times. And then we've also got the Stormlance, which is just really good, advance and charge. And we've got Gladius as well, because it's really flexible, still access to advance and charge and all that. So we're going to run through all them, and then Ryan's going to run through some of his favourite units as well. Yeah, so we'll just dive into the meat and potatoes then. So obviously the army rule for all 3 detachments, with them being Space Marines, is still Earth a moment. Which is obviously just an incredibly good rule. So basically, in every command phase, you pick one enemy unit, and your entire army gets re-rolls to hits against it. So that's just amazing. I remember when 10th edition launched, and they were like, "Yeah, there's not going to be any re-rolls in this edition." Alpha moment.
I think it is. It's just that reliable, incredibly boring, but really reliable army rule. Like, as far as they go, it is spot on, really, isn't it?
It's solid, isn't it? You want something dead, you're having it dead. And it really helps as well, because a lot of the time, I don't necessarily owe for a moment, like, to put my whole army into something. It's normally like, oh, that unit's not going to quite finish that off over there, but if I give them re-rolls, it might just help tip the balance in a little situation.
Yeah, and I think we'll get on to it in a bit more detail when we're talking detachments, but I think Wolves it synergizes weirdly well with as well, because you've got Logan, who gives you full re-rolls in combat, so you can just pick an oath target on one of those turns that is just for your guns. Like, you don't care about the melee side.
Yeah.
Logan's got that covered, so whatever your tanks are shooting, whatever your Hellblasters are shooting, drop oath on that, and you know it'll die.
Yeah, that's true.
Proper reliable.
All right, cool. So we'll do the Champions of Russ first, because this is the one we're all excited about. So let's start with it. So the main change with this was the fact that before you had to unlock all the sagas. So I'll read the army rule, detachment rule in a minute. But now you actually start with one of the sagas unlocked. So you actually get a buff from the start. So it actually makes it quite viable, a little bit like the Black Templars one.
Yeah, I think just between the kind of 3 detachments we're going to talk about, from chatting to you and from chatting to Chris, I think we're all kind of broadly in agreement that your Gladius has got the most kind of technical bits to it, and the highest kind of, if you're really good at your movement, really good with your reactive moves and your screening, there's a lot of room for your skill to shine through on that and push it into those like podiums. Stormlance has a lot of similar tricks, but you don't shooting phase as strong on it, so it's a bit less technically demanding. And then you've got Champions of Russ that I think is like, it's the real Unga Bunga. Like, you can just go run at them, and you need careful prioritization to make sure you get your sagas off without overcommitting to the point you throw units away. Like, they all require thinking. They're not like, I guess, 9th edition Custodes, where your game plan could just be walk at them and you'd probably do pretty well, like 3-2 level.
Yeah, I'd say all 3 detachments require quite a bit of thinking. It's like you say with this one, you don't want to throw your assets away just to try trigger your sagas, which can be a bit, so you do feel like doing that. But it's a lot better that you start with one. So I'll read the detachment rule out. At the start of the first battle round, select one of the sagas listed below, excluding Saga of Majesty, which is interesting. That saga is considered to be completed by your army, and all Adeptus Astartes models from your army gain the associated benefit until the end of the battle. Then, at the end of each player's turn, you can select one of the sagas listed below, excluding the saga that you selected at the start of the first battle round. If that saga was completed by your army during that turn, all Adeptus Astartes models from your army gain the associated benefit until the end of the battle. You can only select each saga once per battle. So, Saga of the Warrior Born. This saga is completed if one or more Adeptus Astartes character models from your army destroyed one or more enemy character models that turn. That basically gives you sustained hits. Saga of Majesty. So this is the one you cannot choose from the start. This saga is completed if you controlled one or more objective markers in your opponent's deployment zone at the end of that turn, and one or more character model from your army were in range of that objective marker. Quite a hard one to get off. You've got to get character on your opponent's deployment, but that gives you an extra OC for the your entire army goes up 1 OC, which is incredible. Which I probably guess is why you can't choose that one from the start, because it would be a
I think that's to probably stop wolves just sidestepping the Pariah Nexus 0 OC thing.
Just having 30 wolf and OC1.
Well, that and 30-point Fenrisian wolves holding your home field and doing actions and stuff. Like every list would run 3 units of Fenrisian wolves if you could start the OC1.
Yeah. So yeah, I get why they've done that. Then we've got Saga of the Bear. The saga is completed if one or more Adeptus Astartes character models from your army were reduced to below half of their starting number of wounds during that turn, but were not destroyed. And that gives your army a 6 up feel no pain. Bjorn's really good for this one because obviously he's quite tanky. It's still quite hard to pull off though. You've got to get a little bit lucky with it, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever. There was one cheeky thing you could do before the latest patch, which could proc it reliably, but other than that, I did, yeah. So
go on.
You used to be able to take a 10-mana Wolfguard with plasma pistols and either a librarian or a lieutenant with them, run them forward, overcharge everything, and there was nothing stopping you putting the hazardous roll on the character before. They have stopped this now because it was cheeky. But just 11 plasma pistols hitting on 2s because of the Wolfguard rule, like just kills stuff like transports, and then you get to just put 1 hazardous on the character, 6 of them are pain all game for nothing. It was disgusting.
Brilliant.
But you can't do that anymore.
And then the last one, Saga of the Beast Slayer. The saga is completed if one or more Adeptus Astartes character models from your army destroyed one or more enemy monster or vehicle models during that turn. The benefit once completed is you get lethal hits in melee. So really, really good. I mean, it's just so good because it's so flexible now that you can choose either lethal or sustained. Some of the stratagems sort of like link well with which saga you choose as well. So we'll get into that shortly. But which one are you looking at there and thinking, I want to start with that one?
So it's matchup dependent, and I think sometimes you kind of forced into one by the matchup, but often I'll end up choosing the one that's hardest to activate. So against Knights, I will normally choose Sustained because it sounds counterintuitive because the lethals is better into Knights, but I've never had a game against Knights where I didn't kill a vehicle turn
totally
one,
agree.
second, or turn 2 if I go first. So you're getting that anyway, that's guaranteed. Like a character will kill a vehicle. So getting Sustained, which, like I said, they all tie to a different strat. So the Sustained also unlocks your advance and charge. The lethals also unlocks your lance, and the 6 up feel no pain unlocks your 4 up against psychic and mortals. So they all have a good second part to it. Majesty, I can't remember what that does. I think it's something weird, like is it something to do with battle shock?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get to it shortly when we get to the stratagems. But yeah, you're totally right with that. So even in a matchup where you think, right, I might need my lethals here, realistically, it's normally vehicles or knights, like you say. So you're gonna kill one anyway and proc your lethals pretty early in the game. So it's almost a waste starting with lethals, and then it's going to be really hard to get you sustained off. Because in the sort of like Iron Storm Knights lists, it's hard to get a character kill anyway.
Yeah, and you can usually there's a strat to count as having done one of the sagas. So there's nothing to stop you picking lethals, spend a CP to give them lethals, and then they've already got sustained because you've picked that as your actual one. And then if you've got a captain in there for free, you get lance and +1 AP, and you've got the full wombo combo on 1 unit. Yeah. And assuming there's a captain in there, it's only cost you 1 CP, and that unit will kill whatever you need it to unlock the other saga. So you're usually best, like we both said, picking that one that's hard to proc rather than the one that's most useful.
Yeah.
And then proccing the other naturally.
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking at it thinking I'm usually going to start with a sustained, unless they are. Yeah, I don't know. I think probably I'm going to start because it gives you access to the advance and charge.
Yeah, I think the only times that I'd look at the others are if they've got no vehicles at all. You'd pick lethals because you want access to lance, especially if they've got some kind of hard targets. If they've got a lot of toughness 5, toughness 6 units, but no vehicles, you probably want to take the lethals to get your lance.
Yeah.
Or if you're into a psychic army, or on the real off chance they've just got tons of damage too, then maybe you'd think about getting that 6-up Feel No Pain, because the 4-up is against psychic attacks as well as mortals. So things like Nemesis Dread Knights that come in with psychic weapons, you get your regular invul and then you get a 4-up Feel No Pain against them, which is just disgusting.
Yeah,
you don't want to be crossing your fingers hoping they'll
you might pick that against Grey Knights and T-Suns, to be fair. Especially like with T-Suns, you can probably kill a character pretty easy to get you sustained off anyway. And you don't really need lethals against T-Suns, like rubric spam. So maybe in that one you would go with a 6-up start with the Saga of the Bear and the Feel No Pain.
I think
it's interesting. It gives you so much flexibility. I think it's amazing. I think it's really, really good.
Absolutely. And I think a couple of kind of big changes from as well. The Dev Wound changes. So now that 4-up Feel No Pain strat, or I think it's a 5-up unless if you haven't got the Saga off. It didn't used to do anything because it only stopped mortals after selecting targets in the shoot and fight phase. So grenades, it didn't do anything to. Tank shock is not in the fight phase. So the strat used to do nothing at all. I'm not aware of a single source of mortals that it affected before. It affects everything, so it's
got a big buff there. Yeah, nice.
One kind of cheeky thing on the you mentioned how difficult the Saga of Majesty is to unlock. That's putting a character on your opponent's home field. My absolute favorite way to do it. It costs 2 CP, but it's 100% worth it. Rapid Ingress Murderfang as close as you can to their deployment. You then, at the start of your next turn, spend a CP to class him as having done Saga of Majesty. So he's now an OC1 unit. And charge him at whatever's on their deployment zone objective. And he will kill anything. Like, there's not much standing up to 2 activations with his bucket of attacks.
Yeah.
Ideally, you want it on like Logan's go turn, so he's got rerolls because he does only hit on 3s. But I've had him kill 600 points of Custodes on their home field objective when they've been keeping little squads of Terminators as action units in reserves, a Rhino and a unit of Sisters, and he just walks through all of them in single activation. Is brilliant. And then he stands there on their objective, holds it at the end of your turn, so it gives you your Saga of Majesty, and the next turn you've got +1 OC, so he's OC1 anyway. It's cheeky. Really good player.
Yeah, I think ingressing something, even maybe like, I don't know, a Terminator chaplain with 5 Terminator, just ingressing something with Deep Strike, and then putting advance and charge on them and getting on that home field. It could be massively game changing because +1 OC army wise is just crazy.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll get on to the enhancements then. So the first one's Black Death, 25 points, adapted to status model only. The bearer's melee weapons have the anti-vehicle 4+ and anti-monster 4+. This is really good, specifically for Ryan.
There's 2 ways to run it. The probably objectively best way is on a captain with either a power fist or power weapon, and then put him with assault intercessors, because they let him reroll his wounds, and then you just fish him for those 4-ups. And on his, I think he's got like finest hour or something, he gets dev wounds once per game.
That's the one. That's the one I've always looked at. I've looked at like giving it to just a character with a thunder hammer or something as well, but like they don't get as many attacks as a captain with that. Puts that.
That's the way I've run it more, with a Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf, because then the dog attacks get it as well. So you've got.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't exclude extra attacks. So the Thunder Hammer gets, I think it's 5 attacks. With dev wounds, damage 3. So you're looking at, if you spike a bit high, you're looking at 10 to 15 mortals through that.
On 4s. And going damage 3 as well. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of running it as well.
And if you've got your lethals off, like you can comfortably get in like 6, if you're lucky, 7 hits off that. So then you're getting a good sort of 10-ish mortals off it.
Yeah.
And then the dog attacks, they'll only be AP 1 or 2 with a strat, but then there's a bucket of extra attacks going into that. So it's probably not as good as the captain, but you do get the dev wounds every turn then versus.
I think it's quite easier to deliver a captain as well, just out of a transport or whatever. But yeah, that's just a really good one to have in if you want to proc your lethals. If you want to start with a sustained and go out and hunt your saga to get your lethals off.
I'd say out of the 4, that's probably the one that I put in before. I put that in during my list building and then see what I've got left at the end. Whereas all the others are a little bit take it or leave it. So Black Death is definitely you build that in rather than waiting to see if you've got 25 points kind of thing.
Yeah, this is you have this enhancement. All right, so the next one, the Pelt of the Beowulf, only 10 points. Adeptus Astartes model only. At the start of the fight phase, each enemy unit within engagement range of the bearer must take a battle shock test. It's okay. It's just like if you've got 10 spare points.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you've got 10 spare points, it's honestly a toss-up between this and upgrading a unit of scouts to wolf scouts. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but wolf scouts get 4 attacks with lightning claws and 3 attacks with a power sword. Like, they can take an objective off a T3 unit, a 10-man T3 unit. They will take it off them. So Part of the Werewolf, it's a bit, if you've got 10 points over and you don't own a lightning claw scout, you probably
then you want it. Yeah, it's a bit naff, really. Frost weapon, 15 points. Adeptus Astartes model only. The bearer's melee weapons have the precision ability, and the strength and AP go up by 1 as well. So I like that as well. Just again, for trying to proc a saga, you just don't have to spend a CP on precision.
Yeah, I think it'll depend a little bit on kind of what the meta's like, but I think at the moment, with like Blood Angels looking pretty good, World Eater's not looking terrible. There's going to be a lot of melee rushing at you, so I think Judiciars are looking decent. You want that fight first somewhere in your army. They already have, I think, AP2 and precision. So Frost Weapon will be good if Judiciar's bad, but I think at the moment you're probably better off. You've probably already got a Judiciar in your list anyway. And by the time you spent 25 points on Black Death, if you've got 15 points left over, it's not a bad shout, but you're probably not building it in.
Yeah, and especially with, like we said, most of the time we're wanting to start with the saga that gives you sustained anyway, so you're not needing that sort of guy to go out and hunt a character as much.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is for 1 CP, there's the core strat to just get precision. So and then you can choose which character has it that fight phase versus having it tied to like a captain or something somewhere.
Yeah, true. All right, cool. Then the last one is Wolf Tail Talisman. This is 20 points. Each time an attack is allocated to there, it's -1 damage on a character. It's 20 points you probably don't want to spend.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, if you take a, say, Wolf Lord Captain or Thunderwolf and spend 20 points on that, you're then at 120 points. Where for 85, you can take, I think it's Harold Deathwolf that just shrugs damage and shrugs an attack every phase. And every phase is ridiculous. Like he's shrugging. I've had him survive being shot and charged by Morgan Val because, that melter got through his invul. He's shrugging that in the fight, in the shipping phase. She got 1 attack through. I think, he's shrugging that as well. Like,
I never actually used him.
Oh, he's amazing. Like he gives death wounds to what always ends up happening is his unit dies and then he's just running around doing secondaries. And by turn 4, very few people have anything left on the board that can get through. I think he's got 7 wounds, 4 up invul, and he shrugs every phase. So what are you getting through that's going to kill him? But for 35 points more, you can get a worse version with a captain with a Wolftail Talisman. So it's probably not. If it was 10 or 15 points, maybe. But
it's a bit too much. So going to the stratagems then. Armor of Contempt. Every Marine faction has this. It's just in your shooting or fight phase, when you're selected as a target of an attack, you minus your opponent's AP by 1.
Yeah, I think it's mostly getting used on, or at least in my games, in Murderfang or Bjorn. A lot of everything else you take is a 3-up save, 4-up invul. So I'm never using it on Thunderwolf Cavalry. I'm never using it on.
That's true.
On Blade Guard. It's like
it's usually a tank for me, like you said. She's usually a tank in cover as well.
Yeah.
And like something's AP free, and I want to get that 4-up save on it and try to keep it alive, or something like a Vindicator or whatever I'm using. But yeah, everyone's got a great stratagem.
Absolutely.
All right, so Death Howl, 1 CP, fight phase. 1 unit from your army that destroyed 1 or more enemy units this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a consolidation move, it can move up to 6 inches instead of 3 inches, providing your unit ends that consolidation move in unit coherency and within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. In addition, if the Saga of Majesty has been completed by your army, each enemy unit within 6 inches of your unit, when it ends that consolidation move, must take a battle shock. 6-inch consolidation's amazing.
Yeah, it's not as good as it was in 9th. Consolidation being so restricted now, it is really good into shooting armies. Being able to go in, kill something, and then lunge across the board to get something else can be huge.
It's just great for tying stuff up.
The main thing I've used it for, I say main, I think the only thing I've used it for is Murderfang. Like, he fights again if you get him back into combat. So being able to just move 6, and if there's anything within 7 of where you end your charge, you can go, just keep it going and keep it going and keep it going. And that could be amazing. Like, Murderfang is probably one of my favorite units at the moment. It's just
fun, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's got
that
no
scrap makes it so much better.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. That's what I mean. Like, it's the only time I really use it. It can be huge against some armies, but the main ones you think of that wouldn't want you in combat with them, like Tau and things like that.
Yeah.
The units you're trying to tag up are vehicles anyway, so they just shoot out of combat and don't care.
Yeah.
So it's niche, but can be really good when you use it.
Yeah, I think it makes your opponent have to play a certain way as well, like has to spread the units out so far, because if they've like got a screen in front of one of their units that they don't want, they've got to push them out so far, because 6-inch consoles, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it can also help you jump onto an objective.
You have to. It can, because the strat specifies you have to go into a unit. It's only if you've charged a unit within 6 of an objective and then can consolidate into a different unit.
Okay, so you have to go into engagement range with this one.
Yeah, you do, yeah. So you can't use it to steal an objective unless there's a unit on it, which it does happen. Like, it can be good for that.
Yeah. But yeah, Murderfang loves this one.
Absolutely.
And the next one to go for the throat, 1 CP, fight phase. 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that has not been selected to fight. You basically get +1 AP, and if you've completed the Saga of the Beast Slayer, which is the lethal hits one, you also get Lance as well. I love extra AP in combat armies, like
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's the I didn't at the start of the edition. I thought this was the wrong way around. I wished you could get Lance easier and unlock the extra AP by doing the Saga, but now that I've played a lot more games with it, you need the AP more often than you need Lance, I think, in this edition. With a lot of your melee being AP1 or AP2, yeah, if you've not even done the Saga yet, just spending it to get the AP can often get you the Saga by like killing a Dread or whatever, by putting it onto a 4-up instead of a 3-up.
Yeah, 100%.
Unless you've somehow burned through all your CP, you're probably spending this most fight.
This is very, very good for Space Wolves specifically, because Thundercav AP1, so going to AP2, Blood Claws AP1, going to AP2, Wolfern AP1, going to AP2.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really helpful just to give us a bit more punch.
Yeah, 100%.
Next one's Warrior Pride. Your 1 CP, your command phase, 1 character model. Select 1 Saga that has not been completed. Until the end of the turn, models in your character's unit have the benefit of the selected Saga as if it had been completed. Yeah, that's really flexible again. Just being able to say, right, this unit's got a 6-up feel no pain, or this unit's got lethal hits, or this unit's got +1 OC.
Yeah.
As well. Like, that's huge because it's in your command phase. So you could gain some primary from that quite easily just by like pumping a unit's OC up.
Absolutely. I think a common way you're going to be using this is turn 1. If you've selected lethal hits or selected sustained hits, you spend 1 CP on a unit with a captain to give them the other one, so they have lethal and sustained on turn 1. Then you advance them towards your opponent, and then use the captain's ability to make them have advance and charge through the one of the others, Relentless Assault, I think it is, one of the other strats.
Yeah,
So then you've got a lethal and sustained hits unit with advance and charge launching at your opponent. And if it's a unit of like Thunderwolf Cav or something where they've got their captains give +1 to advance and charge, you can be absolutely shifting. And I think, is it only 16 inches apart now in some of the new deployments? Like you can.
Yeah, some of the new deployments are really close. The tipping point one, isn't it? Yeah, they are. It is pretty close.
Yeah, so being able to stack things like Warrior Pride to count as having done a saga, and then using the strat that procs off that saga to get its extra effect. You can just turn a unit filthy for 2 CP or 1 CP and a captain.
Yeah. There's some really cool combinations in this detachment. I absolutely love it, to be honest. So Relentless Assault is the next one. This is the one you were just on about. 1 CP, your movement phase. After you've fallen back or advanced, you can basically charge. Oh, okay, hang on. There is a little bit of a... So until the end of your turn, your unit is eligible to shoot when it's fallen back or advanced. But if the Warrior-Born Saga has been completed, then you can charge as well.
Yes.
So that's what you're saying about proccing the Warrior-Born.
Yeah, Warrior-Born is often the one to go with. If you're in any doubt, go with that just for unlocking the good half of this strat. Especially if you're running a lot of Thunderwolf Cavalry, because if they get tied up in combat, falling back and charging to get your damage off and fighting first again, it's worth 1 CP every time.
Yeah, very, very good. And it's probably the main reason why I choose the sustained hits most of the time, just for this strat as well. Because I think every combat army needs access to advance and charge for it to be good, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of the time, yeah, absolutely.
Then we've got Runic Wards. 1 CP, your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that was selected as one of the targets. Until the end of the phase, models in your unit have the Feel No Pain 5+ ability against mortal wounds and psychic attacks. If the Saga of the Bear has been completed by your army, then until the end of the phase, models in your unit have the Feel No Pain 4+ against mortal wounds and psychic attacks. Also, it's shooting phase and fight phase as well. Yeah, this is really, really good, like what you were saying earlier against Grey Knights and T-Suns and stuff.
Yeah,
just
I think it's
Feel No Pain.
Absolutely. I think you're probably not using it outside of like Grey Knights, T-Suns, that sort of matchup. But in that matchup, you're probably using it every turn.
Wounds count as mortals now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff that just puts out an atrocious amount of damage. Like Sisters have got the new. I was on about it with Scott on the last video that we did. The new unit of Seraphim that does like 96 shots and then they can proc more dev wounds.
Yeah,
you can like use it against that and stuff, and just rub half of it off and just be like meh.
Yeah, I think this is the most improved strat I think in the prior changes, because it specifies after selecting targets, it didn't technically work against grenades and didn't work against tank shock, which as far as I'm aware are the only 2 sources of mortal wounds. I think there's a couple of abilities that you select a target within 18 or whatever, but again, they're not after selecting targets rules as written. So it used to do nothing at all as far as I'm aware, and now it's actually genuinely really good into a lot of matchups. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to get a lot more use now since the changes.
Excellent. Right then, so we're going on to the Space Marine detachments. So overall, then, just quickly, what do you think to it? I think it's really, really good. I think it's pretty flexible in terms of damage output. It's not as sort of, like you said at the start, tactical as in you haven't got any reactive moves or anything to buff shooting really or anything like that. It is just purely like the sort of zub one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it plays probably the most like 9th edition Space Wolves. Like all of the tactics comes in knowing your army and knowing what the exact amount of kill is to put into something. Because if you overkill, you're punished really harshly because you're going to lose one of your character units.
Yeah.
So trying to play that kind of secondary game of proccing sagas while not giving up lots of assassinate points and giving up your units easily. But there's not as much strategy in your positioning as there is in Stormlance and Gladius, I'd say. But I think it's the most fun way to play Space Wolves, and it doesn't feel like you're crippling yourself by choosing it over Gladius, which you kind of did at the start. But yeah,
it was no good when you just couldn't start with a saga. In my opinion, it was just Starting with no army rule just wasn't fair.
Yeah, I think now compared to Gladius and Stormlance, it's got a similar amount of damage output to Gladius. It's got probably more damage output than Stormlance, but less flexibility.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's in a pretty good spot. But like, it was never terrible. It was just that there were two better options. Because like I mentioned, in the first league that I ran, Champions Russ in I think most of my games, and
and you won.
Still came out on top of it. I mean, won by default because a couple of people didn't get their games in, but I'm taking it. But yeah, it was never terrible, and now it is genuinely good. Probably still not quite as good as the other two at the absolute top table level, but it won a tournament this weekend in a decent sized.
Nice,
GT.
That's good to see. I like that. Which tournament was that? Do you know?
I can double check, but it wasn't one in the UK, I don't think. But
was it a big American one? Yeah, don't worry about it. So it's nice to see that they've won an event though, with the new rules for it. Right. So this is we're moving on to Stormlance Task Force now. So this is my favourite one. This is the one that I've been running recently, and I've been quite decent success with. So the detachment rule is that all your Adeptus Astartes units from your army are eligible to declare a charge in a turn which they advanced or fell back. That's amazing.
That's honestly probably one of the best detachment rules for any combat army. And jumping ahead a little bit, in combination with a strat that lets you shoot in advance, it just means the entire army is a combat threat and your opponent's constantly second guessing where the shooting threat's going to come from.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. Like, it's a combat army's wet dream.
Absolutely. That is the best
It's what you want, in it. Like, come on. So let's get into the enhancements then. So
kind of take the really top line. This is your go fast, simple game plan, but you need to be good with your movement.
Yeah. The movement tricks in this are fantastic as well. Once you can get your movement tricks down. Right. Okay. So enhancements: Fury of the Storm, 25 points. Adeptus Astartes mounted model only. This is going to be a theme throughout a little bit. Really encourages you to, it encourages you to take bikes because it's really the White Scars detachment. But as a Space Wolf player, it's encouraging me to take Thunderwolf Cavalry.
I've genuinely never seen anyone run bikes in person. Like, I've seen it in a couple of lists online, but I've never seen anyone in person run Stormlance with bikes.
At all. Like, it was the Thunderwolf Cavalry was going to jump on it. Would you think they were like handing us a bit of a lifeline? Like,
I think that
saying it.
Like, it must have been, like, if they wanted it to be good for bikes, they'd have probably done advance and shoot, or advance, shoot, and charge.
Yeah.
Your AP1 chainswords with your 4 attacks, now that they lost their, like, they used to get +3 or something, didn't they, in 9th for charging? Yeah, this was always it. Surely it was aimed at us from the start.
White Wolves. So, mounted model only, improve the strength and the AP characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons by 1, and each time he makes a charge, they improve by 2. It's 25 points, but it's pretty good.
I'd say
what do you like to use it on?
It's a captain with lightning claws, surely, every time.
Yeah, I do like the Wolf Lord with the lightning claws as well. I think
so.
That's
what I meant. Yeah, the Wolf Lord.
Yeah, the Wolf Lord. Yeah.
I think it takes the unit from, because the other important thing about Stormlance, it doesn't have a +1 AP strat like pretty much every other detachment. So you're stuck at AP1 with all your Thunderwolves. So making the characters absolute beat sticks is kind of important for getting those hard targets. And this, it says if the bearer ends a charge move, but your detachment rule is fall back and charge. So you should never, ever, ever not have charged with this character. Like, you've done something seriously wrong. Stuck in combat in the fall back and charge detachment.
Yeah, that's true. The Wolf Lord goes to 7 attacks. I believe when he charges, he goes 7 attacks, strength 7, AP 4, damage 2. With probably lethal hits because you've got your battle leader in there. It's just super, super good.
And never forget the doggo as well. The doggo going to strength 7 as well with AP 3.
Yeah, the dog goes to AP 3.
It is I'd say that's objectively the correct character to put it on.
Yeah.
If you really wanted to, you can send your Thunderhammer to strength 10, but getting twin linked with the claws you've got to make a really strong argument for why you need that Thunderhammer to go to strength 10.
Yeah.
But that strength 7 breakpoint is huge because there is nothing in the game that's above toughness 13, I don't believe. Yeah. Somebody's probably going to correct me on that in the comments that there's this one Forge World unit, but essentially everything in the game you're wounding on 5s. Little spoiler, but obviously there is a Lance strat, so you'd spend the Lance strat. It's a captain model that you're putting it on. The Wolflord and Thunderwolf is the captain equivalent, so it's a free strat to basically make him wound everything in the game on 4s with twin linked. So it's an absolute beat stick. And this is another one of those that you probably included in your list building, not waiting to see if you have 25 points left. Just stick it on the captain when you add him to your roster is good.
Yeah, and the Wolflord in this detachment as well, just with the changes, I think has got even better because, all right, you can't spam the -1 and -8 to wound, but what you can do is in your first turn for 1 CP, move 19 inches up the board and charge, which is crazy.
It is amazing. And it's, probably the only reason that I'm still looking at Stormlance now that Champions of Rust looks good. Because just going, by the way, this unit of Thunderwolf Cavalry can move 19 inches if I go first.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Because it was always like, oh, well, if I go second, I can do it. And now it's just like, I can just do it every turn.
Yeah.
Every turn, I can just go 19 inches. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. You can tell we're excited little Space players, can't you? Just skipping ahead like halfway through. All right, so the next one, Hunter's Instincts. Adeptus Astartes mounted model only again. If the bearer's unit is in strategic reserves, for the purposes of setting up that unit on the battlefield, treat the current battle round number as being 1 higher than it actually is, and it's literally only 10 points. I stick this in every single time.
Yeah, you've got no reason not to. I think we mainly play on UKTC. It can sometimes be hard if you've got a lot of these big round bases, especially if you're running like the full 18 cav 6 character version of this. It can be hard to fit that all in a relatively safe spot to not just get shot to bits. So being able to put a unit in reserves and then bring it in whenever you like is amazing.
Big footprint to hide it all, like you say. And even though, because you can come in turn 1 with this, basically, is what it's saying.
Yeah.
Or turn 2, you could come in their deployment zone if they're a bit too, come out. But basically, like you say, you can't hide 3 units for Thunderwolves. So you may as well, for 10 points, start one in reserve. Even if they do screen you back, you can ingress them in to a bit of a nicer position where they're probably not going to get shot by as much stuff. And obviously before you could spam the -1 to hit and wound on the other 2 blobs. Now you'll only be able to do it on 1 this time, so you're going to have to keep one of them a bit safe. Put the -1 to hit and wound on the further forward one, and then ingress the 3rd unit. I have found that I do struggle to fit them on sometimes in a unit of 6 with 2 characters though. So going forward, I have actually reduced that unit with that enhancement to a 3-man. Just for the 15 wolves now. So see how that goes. But
I mean, I think it's weird talking about Space Rules. We keep jumping forward onto strats and stuff, but you kind of have to because everything. There's a lot of stuff where you have to use it together, or it just kind of doesn't work. But usually you'll be taking Logan because Logan's amazing, and I don't think we actually mentioned it. I mentioned how good he was earlier. I don't think I said what he does. But once per game, he doesn't have to be on the board. So if you're not running him on his big sleigh, you can just put him in deep strike, keep him safe until he uses his ability. But you get to army-wide reroll your charge roll, and then army-wide reroll hits in the combat in the fight phase, which then goes really well with something like Hunter's Instinct. If you put that on a unit of Thunderwolf Cavalry, they can come in turn 1. The captain's ability is +1 to advance and charge. So you've got an 8-inch charge out of reserves. And then on Logan's go turn, you've got reroll charges for free on an 8-inch charge, which I think is like 70% chance of success or something.
It's reliable.
So you can combo it all into being relatively reliable. And like you said, for 10 points, that unit doesn't get shot turn 1. Which surely that's worth 10 points in a combat army.
Yeah, it's great. It's really, really good. All right, next one, Portents of Wisdom. This is any Astartes model, doesn't have to be mounted. While the bearer is leading the unit, you can reroll advance rolls. It's only 15 points. It's pretty nice, but I mean, with the auto advance strat, it's like not needed. But it's nice.
Yeah, I think it's, if you've when you're building your list, you're probably putting Fury of the Storm for the blender character in when you're building. You might be putting Hunter's Instinct in when you're building, but if you've got any points left over, you're definitely choosing Hunter's Instinct over Portents of Wisdom. It's not bad, but
yeah, it's not needed. But it's good for a combat army. It's all right. Like you say, you probably don't put it in because of the other two. And then Fainting Withdrawal, 20 points. Again, this is any Astartes model, not just a mounted. While the bearer is leading a unit, that unit is eligible to shoot in a turn which it fell back. It's all right. Again, in this detachment, I don't actually run usually any infantry shooting stuff. It's just all cav of some vehicles and then some screens and stuff. So I don't ever see a place where this would fit into my Stormlance list at all.
Yeah, fully agree. I can't see what unit you'd be bringing to use that on. It's if you end up using one, or if you're using just because that's the models you've got, and you've got a big unit of Hellblasters or Aggressors or something. Yeah, looks fine. They can fall back, shoot, and charge, which is always nice. You're just probably not taking a unit that will use it in this detachment.
Yeah, it like actually would be really good on Aggressors, but you're probably not taking them in this detachment. So it's but if you did bring Aggressors, you would probably give the captain in the Aggressors a dart.
Yeah, it's way better than reroll advanced rolls for 5 more points.
I'm not going to do Armor of Contempt again. We've already spoke about it. It's going to be in all 3 of the detachments. Armor of Contempt. The next one, Ride Hard, Ride Fast. This is in your opponent's shooting phase, mounted only, or fly vehicle unit. You basically subtract 1 from the hit and the wound roll. That's just amazing for 1 CP, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely amazing. I think this was the one hit hardest by the prior changes. You used to run 2 captains and do this on your 2 units of Thunderwolf Cavalry, while your 3rd unit was in reserves with the Hunter's Instinct. You can't do that now. I also think this is probably one of the most, I don't know, like skill-intensive bits as well of when to use this. Because against Index Tau, they did not care about this, and they would just bugger you through it. So wasted the CP and the unit was still dead. A lot of other armies won't really be able to, because Thunderwolf Cavalry are toughness 6, 4 wounds with a 4 pinball. Like some armies will just whiff on them anyway, and again wasted the CP if they were going to whiff anyway. So knowing the right times to use this is one of the kind of defensive challenges on this detachment, I think. And I've always struggled with it. I know you're quite a bit better at it than me, and Chris is really good at it when I've seen him play Stormlance. But yeah, I seem to always time it just wrong with this strat.
Yeah, you can sort of overuse it, is what you're saying. Yeah. And also, like Tau still do just ignore it because they've got triple Riptide now, and they just ignore the -1 to hit. And -1 to wound does put them to 4s, but yeah, it's not amazing against them really. But it is really, really good stratagem.
It is, and I think general advice: if they've got rerolls, don't use it. You still get the -1 to wound at its sort of full effect, but unless that's taking them from like 5s to 6s, it's probably not worth a CP to do it. If you're just taking them from 3s to 4s,
because you've got 4 pin runs, your T6, you have got a sort of I think I probably do overuse this a little bit, like you said.
It's hard to use. It's one of those things, I guess, that comes with lots and lots of reps of knowing when stuff shoots at you, whether it's worth using it. But it's a very, very good strat.
All right, cool. Next one, Blitzing Fusillade.
One of those.
One of them. In your shooting phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Assault ability. If such a weapon already has this ability, until the end of the phase, that weapon has the Sustained Hits 1 ability as well. This used to be better before the new pack because you could advance an action, which is what I usually used it for. But it's still handy.
I think this one is one of those that you'll use it occasionally, usually on a tank, on something like a Vindicator or on like a Redemptor if they ever come down in points. But the threat of it often makes your opponent. Make sure you tell your opponent you've got this, Even if you never use it, like the
threat
threat of it existing will make them play way cagier, and you might never use it. Like just the threat that Redemptor could advance, move like 16 inches, and then do this.
Yeah, I've found that like when you get to sort of the higher up tables, though, people just ignore it anyway. Like, oh, I've got this, and like, oh, you're not going to spend a CP on that. But it's like definitely like just saying I can advance that Vindicator down that flank or that Lancer and get a better angle down there. Just sort of makes them pull it back sometimes.
Yeah.
So it is nice to have, but yeah, it's like you said, the threat of it's probably better than the actual use of it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Right, Windswift Evasion is also 1 CP. Your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move. One Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that is within 9 inches of that enemy unit, your unit can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. You cannot select a unit that is within engagement range. This is the best stratagem in the detachment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It just makes it's just so awkward for opponents when it's coupled with the ability of the Wolfguard Battle Leader. When you shoot them, they can move D6 into combat. So you can do stuff like when your opponent falls back, you reactive move an inch 1.1 away, and then they can't shoot you, or you just back into combat because of the Wolfguard Battle Leader's ability.
Yeah. I think as well as that, I don't think his ability specifies that it has to be. This ability doesn't specify where you go, so you can get yourself close to multiple units and then go straight into combat and end up tagging 2 or 3 if you're really lucky units, all off being shot once. And like you said, the big thing is that if they fall back from you, most things move 6. So you're rolling a d6 when you get shot. So you need to roll a 6 to get them back into combat. But with this, you go up to 1 away and then you can't fail it. And you just see how many guys get in rather than seeing if you make it.
Yeah, it's like you only get to shoot me with 1 thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had people as well, and it's been game changing, sort of screen me in my deployment. They've gone first. The scouts have like advanced in front of my cavalry, and then they've like shot me with a predator or something, and I've just gone. Sorry, that wasn't with the strat. That was with the battle leader's ability.
Yeah,
I just cleared the screens. Yeah, that battle leader's ability is insane. But yeah, this strat is really good. In fact, it's a normal flat 6 as well.
Yeah, the flat 6 is, there's not a huge number of units that get to do that, so it is really good. The other thing this can do, because you tell your opponent that you can do both of those things at the start of the game. And I've had it into Tau where I've had a big unit get like really in amongst them and didn't quite have enough consolidation after I'd killed a unit to go back into combat again. But that meant that every unit within 9 of them just didn't move because they didn't want to proc this.
Yeah.
1 inch away.
Sometimes pin your opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you're rolling a d6 when you get shot, and you might need a 5 or a 6 or whatever where you end up. But you froze half their army in place in fear of getting a reactive move. And if they whiff to kill you, you're then perfectly positioned for your turn. So it can be really good. And again, coupled with ride hard, ride fast to get them to survive when they shouldn't. Yeah, it can be awesome.
Yeah, I've been loving this stratagem so much. I just think it's amazing. It's funny that like Eldar's Phantasm's now D6 and this is just flat 6.
Dogs are better than like space magic. That's all that I'm taking from this.
What are these dogs on in this detachment? What have they been feeding them, man? Like, honestly. This next one. Oh, is it this next one? Yeah, it's this next one. They've been on summit of these doggos. So this is 2 CP. But you can put obviously one of lord/captain in and make it 1 CP, like we discussed earlier. But it's in your movement phase. Your target is mounted or vehicle until the end of the phase. If your unit advances, do not make an advance roll. Instead, until the end of the phase, add 6 inch to your movement characteristic, or 9 inch if it's mounted. So obviously you can advance and charge, and your cavalry are going 19 inches.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
It's not an enhancement or anything that you have to choose before the game. So if you've got 2 units with a captain in each, your opponent doesn't even know which unit is going to move 19 inches turn 1. Select can work around it. If you stick a captain unit on each side of the board, you get to charge whatever you want first turn.
It's making me want to take a second lord, you know.
Yeah, it's really conflicting, like the flexibility of being able to do these sort of things wherever you want, against the fact that you lost being able to do it twice. But I think this detachment is probably the only one where the lords didn't really lose out. Like that 19-inch turn one move and then getting to charge with +1 to charge. It's filthy. Like, you can't. Your opponent has to deploy knowing that you could do that with one of two different units.
Yeah, that is mental. Okay, then the last one is basically if you're mounted again in your charge phase, you proc it, you get lance +1 to wound, which is just really good. Helps the damage output. We've already discussed that cavalry. Sorry, they're only strength 5 AP 1. Yeah, they have lethal hits. You can get rerolls really easily, but they don't actually do a ton of damage. So lance just really helps. +1 to wounds just good, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, so it's always good. I think if this gave AP and lance instead of reroll your charge roll and lance, then I wouldn't have said what I did earlier about Champions of Us being the higher damage version compared to Stormlance.
Yeah.
But I think if this also gave AP, that we'd have probably got nerfed a lot harder in the recent balance change, because then we would be incredibly killy, as well as the most mobile and the most durable. So it's probably right that it doesn't. I guess one thing to be careful of with this is you have to spend it in the charge phase, and it's before the unit declares a charge. If you go up against a actually as soon as you've rolled that charge, they could not let you play lance. So I guess if you're playing a really dickish opponent, make sure you remember to play it before you charge, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to remember the order of stuff, I suppose. I mean, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a good idea that they didn't give the extra AP, just because, like, Thunderwolves are only AP 1, but when you've got 2 characters in there and just the bucket of attacks that they get with lance and lethals, like, I've had a unit, Logan Grimnow and Storm Rider with a battle leader and 6 Thunderwolves. Pretty much, I think they nearly killed. I think they actually did kill the entire unit of 20 Crusaders.
I mean,
with the field of pen. With the field of pen.
Yeah, that same unit, I've had it overkill a unit of Wraiths with the Feel No Pain.
Yeah,
just come in, kill the whole lot and the characters, just sweep them aside, and they had extra attacks still to go. Like, they're amazing.
Yeah. So you think each wolf's got 7 attacks really at damage 2, then your characters have got buckets of attacks at damage 3 and 4, and yeah, it does start adding up.
Yeah.
So that's the Stormlance. That's my favourite one. I think it's just really good. It's obviously directing you to run lots and lots of cavalry, which I just think is really cool as well.
Yeah, I think kind of your lists in this haven't really changed much from Thunderwolf Cavalry getting a slight nerf. You're still looking at a minimum of probably 12 Thunderwolf Cavalry.
Yeah.
Realistically, probably 15, maybe 18, depending on how you like to run them.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone from 18 down to 15 just because I wanted Bjorn in my list. I've just made room for Bjorn, basically. I've lost the Wolfen as well because OC0 obviously now is just means you can't do actions as well as hold objectives. So for me, Ander went up in points. I don't think Wolfen are going to make my lists as much. I mean, do you still like Wolfen? What do you think?
I think specifically in Stormlance I do, because they've got assault weapons. So you don't care that you're advancing them all the time. They can't do actions anyway. You just advance them around, lobbing D6 shots at everything around them and charging it wherever you can. They're still decent. Probably
they're okay at clearing screens, I suppose. But
yeah,
I would just rather have the jump pack assault intercessors for 80 points.
Yeah, I think probably the tournament lists for Stormlance are going to be a bucket of Thunderwolf Cavalry, like I said, 15 to 18 of those. 2 to 3 units of jump assault intercessors, because again, advance and charge on a 12-inch unit with breachable, they're amazing to get wherever. And I still probably think some Wolfen, because they've got the assault weapons. They still hit hard. They're still strength 6, AP 1, damage 2. Like, they clear stuff out really, really well.
Quite annoying to kill as well. I've got a 4-up inbun and a 6-up field and a pain at T5. They could just be a bit annoying.
Fight on death as well, which when you've got Blood Angels running at you or World Eaters running at you is great. You just put a little screen of them in front, the 90 points, and they hit hard in return. So I think they're good in Stormlance. I'm probably not putting as many of them in any other lists now, really.
Yeah. It was so funny when 10th launched, because Chris was like an advocate for like 30 Wolf and straight from the start.
He was, yeah. I think he toned it down and wasn't as sure after the first few months. But then when they went to like damage 2 on the hammers and strength 6, like he was 100% right. Like he called it.
yeah. When the damage went up, that made a big difference.
Yeah, it did. He was doing well with it from day one, to be fair.
Yeah, he was.
Not with 30 of them, more like 15. But
like I say, he came second in the ITC in the UK last season with Wolves, and that was when we didn't even have a detachment, really. Yeah. So, yeah. All right, cool. We'll move on to Gladius then. This one's been around from the start of 10. It's still really good. Really, really flexible. So the detachment rule is at the start of your command phase, you can select one of the combat doctrines listed below. Until the start of your next command phase, that combat doctrine is active and its effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes units in your army. You can only select one combat doctrine once per battle. So you've got your Devastator doctrine. That is, you're eligible to shoot in a turn which you've advanced. You've got your tactical doctrine. This unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn which it fell back. And you've got Assault Doctrine. This unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. So you select each one of them once per game, and your whole army can do it. So really, really flexible, being able to do pretty much anything you want there, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the most reliable one, the safest one to get value out of. I think Chris's comment when we were chatting about this before this call was that he really is a big advocate for having a combination of melee units and then tanks to back it up. And I think you do need that. If you're not running that, you're probably better off moving to either Stormlance for the advance and charge or Champions of Russ for the fun. But if you do that combination, it is really good. I think this is probably the highest kind of skill ceiling one. You've got the movement tricks, but they're only D6 unless you're in the right doctrine. You've got to plan out when to use your doctrines to get the most value. It took a bit of a hit in Pariah because your doctrines don't let you do actions now like they used to. It used to be that at the start of your turn, you'd be like, oh, well, my units are tied up that could get me deploy homers. Okay, we're in tactical doctrine, and you'd fall back and do an action. So it took a little bit of a hit, but it is still kind of the...
That's true. I didn't think of it like that, actually. That's a really good point, that, Ryan.
Yeah, it's a little hit for it, but I think it is still, probably up there with the best detachment. I know, I think Chris ranks this as his favourite from the competitive side. So yeah, really, really strong detachment. I think other kind of big changes in Pariah. We lost access to Apothecary Biologists, or however you pronounce the word.
Yeah, we did,
Which is a big change for this because you used to give them the fire discipline. And honestly, I think the first person I ever heard of doing this was you, Joe, in our league game in the first season. Like putting it with Eradicators, which is now like the meta people to run them with. You were doing it before it was cool. But that was,
I did it first.
You did genuinely. I don't know anyone that did it before you. What was that like? September, October time last year, you were running that. You one shot Bjorn and Murderfang with the same split firing unit.
With Eradicate.
It's disgusting. But yeah, it's
losing him a bit sad. We'll get to fire discipline in a minute. But with the Eradicators, it was pretty brutal because they give them lethals, right? And sustained 5s.
Yeah, lethal and sustained on 5s.
Re-rolling against vehicles, so your Eradicator 6-man blob could just split fire and take out 2 or 3 vehicles essentially.
Yeah. So we did lose that for Wolves, which is again is a little bit sad, but I think it's a very nice thing. You can replace that same function with like.
It makes sense wise. Like we've never had apothecaries
Yeah, you strap wolf priests though, so
that's true.
Give us those back if they're going to take a.
Where are the priests at?
Yeah, where'd the priests go?
Where did they all go? All right, cool. Enhancements then. Artificer armor, 10 points. The bearer has a 2-up save and a 5-up feel no pain. 10 points in it.
Yeah, you're not building your army around it, but you've got 10 points left. That's probably one of the better 10-point enhancements outside of
it's not bad. It makes a character quite tanky, that actually, especially a Thunderwolf guy.
Yeah.
Next up, the Honor Vehement, 15 points. Add 1 to the attacks and strength. If you're in the Assault Doctrine, you get 2 to the attacks and strength. This is really good on a captain, a bit like we were on about the Black Death earlier. Your captain just gets extra attacks and strength with when he procs his Dev Wound turn. I think it takes him to I can't remember, is it 10 attacks actually? Because he gets +3, then +2.
Yeah, it will be, yeah. Yeah, 10 attacks.
Yeah, that if you give him a Power Fist, he goes to strength 10.
Yeah.
10 attacks at strength 10, is that right? That's sounds wrong, but I think it's right.
Yeah, it's one of those that's definitely worth it. You're just turning a captain into an absolute beat stick. And again, it doesn't say, some of these kind of enhancements in different factions say excluding extra attacks. This one doesn't. So if you want, you could put it on a captain and get 10 attacks. You could equally put it on a Wolflord on Thunderwolf and you don't get the extra attacks, but +2 to the strength of the dog, as well as +2 to the attacks and strength of the rider. So there's a couple of places you can use it. That's what it is with extra attacks, isn't it? It's you can buff it, but you can't buff the attacks, a number of attacks on it. Yeah. Cool. All right, cool. So Adept of the Codex next. Captain model only. At the start of your command phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, instead of selecting a combat doctrine to be active for your army, you can select the tactical doctrine. If you do, until the start of your next command phase, that combat doctrine is active for the bearer's unit only, even if you have already selected that combat doctrine to be active for your army this battle. It's basically fall back and shoot and charge, is it? This is one that I don't think is that good for melee armies. So this was one that people play wrong a lot. It says instead of choosing a combat doctrine for your army, so you can't use a doctrine at all that turn other than for this unit. Yeah, that's what people play wrong a lot of the time. So it is still okay, it's decent. But yeah, you do have to bear in mind you can't go into Assault Doctrine for your whole army and then Tactical Doctrine for your unit that's caught in combat. You are choosing that instead of whatever you would have chose. So it's still okay, but for 20 points, I'd probably be taking the Honor Vehement first.
And it's we'll get onto it, but there's a stratagem to put a unit in the Doctrine anyway, so
yeah, there is.
You spend points on this, really?
Exactly, and that the strat doesn't stop you doing it in addition to your regular doctrine. So it's instead of for that unit, the strat, but not ruling out the rest of your army. So yeah, I don't really like this.
Do you think they've actually worded that bit wrong, or do you think that's how it's meant to be?
I'm not sure.
It's a bit daft, isn't it?
Yeah, I do wonder if that was unintentional, the way it's worded, but I'm not sure. But how it is worded and kind of rules is written, I don't really like this one that much.
Yeah, it's not very good. I don't think I'd ever take that, actually. And then the next one's Fire Discipline. While the bearer is leading a unit, ranged weapons get sustained hits 1. In addition, while the bearer's unit is under the effects of the Devastator Doctrine, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, a successful unmodified hit roll of 5+ scores a critical hit. So this is what we were just on about, where you used to get a biologist that give you lethals. So you'd have lethals, give him this, they get sustained, put him in a unit, Devastator Doctrine, you get any sustained and lethal 5s. So it used to be really, really good on him. You can put it on I've got a list with a librarian in Hellblasters. So he's going to give them it, but
I guess can lieutenants go with Hellblasters? They do the same thing, I guess, with lethal and sustained on 5s.
Yeah, potentially. I know Libby gives them a 4-pin run, which makes them, just because they're only 2 wounds in Marines. So I just thought, but yeah, maybe he can go in them as well. Because then you've got, they actually are pretty good, that unit then, like advance and shoot, damage 2, AP 3, going to AP 4 if you do the Storm of Fire thing as well.
Yeah, and ignoring cover. That's anything that's not got an invul is not likely to get a save. Yeah, it's.
I can't see anywhere else I'd really. Oh, you could put it in aggressors, can't you? You could put it on a captain.
Yeah.
But they don't give them lethals anymore.
No, so you just get sustained, and that's probably not worth the 30 points. But
you don't, yeah.
I think probably the best way, because now repulsors you can are looking pretty good. You might be tempted to put a lieutenant with a unit of Hellblasters in a repulsor, drive it up, get them out, shoot it, and then they get the repulsor's reactive move to get back in if they're charged. Might be all right against some armies. But
I tell you what, Ryan, this is not sounding very Space Wolfy, is it?
It's not. I think that's why I'm not a huge fan of Gladius, because to get the best advantage out of it, you need to play not very Space Wolfy. You need, I think, really kind of like what I'd say is your schematic for a Gladius list is probably maybe 400 points of Thunderwolves, whether that's a 6 and a 6 or a 6 and 2 3s. Probably about 500 points of vehicles in the kind of ranged side, like your repulsors, your gladiators, vindicators, predators, that kind of stuff. And then maybe up to 500 points of characters, because Bjorn should be in every list. I think he's so good. So including Bjorn, you're probably looking at like 500 points of characters, and then a load of stuff for scoring. But like half your army then is 500 points is serious shooting, another 500 points is kind of actions and shooting. So it doesn't sound very Space Wolfy, but you've still got like 50% wolves if that works for you.
Yeah, I was running Gladius at the start of 10th because I just loved my Space Wolves, and Champions of Russ was naff and we didn't have any other options.
Yeah.
And I just got bored of it pretty quickly because it didn't feel like Space Wolves because I just had too much shooting. It's a bit like the Ironstorm. Like like we're going through these 3 detachments. You're more than welcome to run Space Wolves as Ironstorm. Have Bjorn and Murderfang and some Wolf and Dread. You have a castle, but it's just not Space Wolfy.
Yeah,
I don't know. It just doesn't feel right.
I played Ironstorm once. Wasn't sure on it, and then I think it's pronounced Jaime Paris or Jamie Paris is a dude that's one of the best Space Wolf players in the world. Is really good player. He took it to the World Championships last year and did not do well. And if someone that's that good a player generally is taking it, and I mean, I'm sure he didn't get completely slapped. Like, he's a really good player, but I don't think he made it out of his group stage. So if someone at that level is struggling with it, there's probably better options.
Better factions to play Ironstorm with, and also if you're a Space Wolf enthusiast, you don't really want to be running a bunch of tanks or a bunch of shooting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so the next, we're going to the stratagems then. Armor of Contempt again. Don't need to go through that. Really good. Storm of Fire. 1 CP or shooting phase. 1 unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have ignores cover. And if your unit is in the Devastator Doctrine, you get an extra AP as well. Again, this used to be really good with Fire Discipline on the aggressors, but could be useful. Still a good stratagem, to be honest.
I think it's really good on stuff like the Vindicator. If you're putting it into infantry, so like D6 plus 3 shots, go from AP3 to AP4. Like you do the save. Stuff like if you're, because it's Devastator Doctrine and you can advance and shoot. Stuff like Redemptors. Again, they're a bit too expensive to be amazing at the moment, but that kind of big AP, big damage shot that's going to clear out whole units if you just take the save away.
Yeah, ignore cover's huge in 10th edition because everybody gets cover as well, because it's just so easy to get cover that any stratagem to remove cover is really useful.
Yeah, it's effectively plus 1 AP in 90% of circumstances, and if you can get plus 1 AP and ignores cover, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really good. It is good. Okay, so next one's squad tactics. This is the reactive move one. So your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback, so the same as Stormlance. 1 Adeptus Astartes infantry or mounted unit from your army that is within 9 inches of the enemy unit Your unit can make a normal move up the D6, but if you're in a tactical doctrine, it's flat 6. And then again, obviously, you can't do this if you're in engagement range. So this is okay, but it's really good if you're in tactical doctrine.
Yeah, I think this is everything we said about the Stormlance version kind of applies here. Like, it controls the way your opponent plays a lot. If you're playing on like UKTC or WTC, where there's these big, really thin ruin walls where you can, a 2-inch would probably get a unit from one side to the other. It forces your opponent not to come within 9, or they might lose any chance to shoot at you by you just disappearing behind a wall. So it's a good strat. This is one of the ones that I think separates like a decent player from a top player, being able to use this kind of strat to win games, which is it seems a bit boring, like you're just moving a little bit, but it is what wins games. Using this to save a unit that should have died. Yeah, using it to get on objectives, or there's a lot of different ways you can use it, but it's.
I think this one's even a bit of a higher skill level as well than the Stormlance one, just because you have to sort of preemptive when you're going to be in the tactical doctrine. So because you don't want to be rolling a d6 to do it, because it's not worth it, because the amount of times you'll just not roll high enough to get where you want to be. It's just not worth doing unless you're actually in the tactical doctrine. So you sort of pre-see when you want to use it, which makes it harder to use, in my opinion.
I think this detachment as a whole, you need much better kind of forward planning and knowing what you're going to do each turn and how you're going to respond to things. Because if you're not in the tactical doctrine, you need to be in a position where a 1 or 2 inch move is going to make all the difference. Like, 1 probably won't, but like a 2-inch move might get you to the other side of a wall because you've positioned your Hellblasters just right or something. And you need to use your doctrines perfectly to get the value out of them. If you're wasting your Assault Doctrine to get a single unit into combat, or you're Hail Marying it to do a load of 9-inch charges in your Assault Doctrine, like, you need to be using them and getting good value out of them, or you'd be better off going with Stormlance, where you always get your army rule.
Cool. So next one, Adaptive Strategy. This is in your command phase. 1 unit from your army. You select, basically choose a doctrine and you put it on a unit. So you can give a unit advance and charge, fall back and shoot, fall back and charge, all that good stuff, advance and shoot as well. So this is probably the best stratagem in terms of like what makes it tick, because you can just select an individual unit and make it do whatever you want it to do.
This is another one that I think about half its use before was I spend a CP and I get a free secondary. If you've tied my unit up in combat, I spend a CP and go into tactical, fall back and do an action. If I need to advance and do an action. So it used to get used a lot for that, but it can get used in combination with other strats, especially with a unit with a captain in it. So putting it into the Devastator Doctrine so that you can use your Storm of Fire on your whatever the enhancement's called, Fire Discipline unit. Or putting a unit into the Assault Doctrine to use the next strat we're looking at on another chapter. Like, comboing them up, especially with a captain unit, is really strong. It's one of the best strats in this detachment, I think.
It's really cool that you can combo them up now with making the free one minus in a CP with a captain. Makes it easier to do so, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so only in death does duty end. Fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 unit from your army that was selected as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attacks, and then it's removed from play. So it's 2 CP, full fight on death. You don't have to roll for it. It's just you are fighting.
It's another one like the auto advance 9 strat that we talked about in Stormlance. Because of the changes to how captain abilities work, this has become amazing. You have a captain unit that fights on death for 1 CP, and you don't have to roll anything, just the whole unit gets to fight, and that's brilliant. It's really good.
That is so good. Like, the fact you just don't have to roll a 3 up or a 4, it's just you are fighting on death. If you've got a captain in the unit, it's costing you 1 CP. So that is very, very good.
If you've not used the captain's ability yet, and you get charged by a decent melee unit, you should always just spend this. It's always going to be worth it. You're probably not putting a captain in a unit that can't punch anyway, so it's going to be Blade Guard or Assault Intercessors or something like that. yeah, it's just always worth getting to swing with that unit for 1 CP versus not getting to swing at all.
Yeah, solid. And then the last one is Honor the Chapter, fight phase. 1 unit from your army. You basically get Lance. And if your unit is in the Assault Doctrine, you get an extra AP as well. So this is better than the Lance in the Stormlance for the reasons you were saying, that you choose this in the fight phase, not the charge phase.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of failing your charge and wasting the CP. And also you do get an extra AP if you're in the Doctrine as well. So
yeah, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of our kind of baseline melee units are AP 1. So your Blood Claws, your Assault Intercessors, your Jump Assault Intercessors, and AP 1 to AP 2 is a massive difference.
Yeah.
You're going from into a normal 3-up save unit, you're going from them saving half of your damage to them only saving a third of it. So it's a big step up, and it's usually the difference between like wiping a unit of Marines versus half killing them, and then they might be OC2 to your OC1 or whatever, and it's it's really, really
why the Gladius and the Russ do pump out more damage than the Stormlance. So yeah, interesting. 3 of the ways that we think you should play Space Wolves, probably the 3 best detachments in our opinion.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to rank them because it just depends on what style you want to go for and what sort of units you want to run. I'll always say Stormlance just because I love Thunderwolf Cavalry.
Yeah, fair.
But I do also can't wait to try the Champions of Russ. And then obviously, like Chris said, Gladius is probably the best, but then it doesn't feel, in my opinion, as Space Wolfy as the other 2.
Yeah, I think when you were talking about doing this video, I think I couldn't come with a good way of ranking the 3 against each other in terms of strength. So I kind of like ranking them in terms of ease of use and fun. Like I think that Champions is the most fun and joint easiest to use with Stormlance. I think Gladius for me is the least fun and plays in the least sort of Space Wolfy kind of way, the way you picture playing them when you pick up the army. You know, like every army's got an image of it in your head, like your Tyranids, your carpet of bugs or whatever.
Yeah.
But Gladius is probably if you are a really, really good player, it's probably still the strongest. You've got the reactive moves, you've got a good amount of shooting, you've got kind of the whole package. But I think you have to be a really good player to get more value out of Gladius than you would from Stormlance or Champions of Russ.
Yeah, I agree. It's more flexible as well as Gladius, I suppose.
I think if you cock up if you don't get your doctrine right on the right turn, then your strats are a bit rubbish, and you have to be thinking ahead more.
Got to get right. Yeah. All right, cool. So we'll finish off with some of our favourite units then. So I'll start off with number 5. In fact, before we do this top 5, is there any honourable mentions? I know you might have mentioned one.
So one of my favourite units, especially in Champions of Russ, but generally is pretty good anyway, is Murderfang. Like, he's incredible. His rule is that every time he gets shot or if he gets fought in melee, he fights again. UKTC have, WTC have, I think Games Workshop have as well, ruled that means you can fight as many times as you can get hit in the fight phase.
It was in the news.
So it's just amazing. You can go in, I've had him take out like 500-600 points of Custodes in a single activation. He goes in, kills a unit. In Champions of Russ, you spend a CP to consolidate 6, and he just keeps going and going. Like,
it's so funny.
He's huge. He's amazing, and the amount of damage he puts out.
14, 8 attacks, twin links, damage free. You can pump up his AP in a couple of these detachments. In one of the detachments, you can consolidate him 6 so that they have to hit you and you can fight again. He's really, really cool. He is 170 points.
He has no invul. He's 170 points. He's only got 8 wounds. He doesn't reduce damage. He does have a 6-up feel no pain, but essentially, if you're taking him, you're rapid ingressing him usually to guarantee he gets into combat once, ideally multiple times. And really, you kind of want to pair him with Logan because he only hits on 3s, Murderfang. So either you send him at your oath target or you do it on your full rerolls turn to get the most value. But yeah, I've had him kill one shot a big knight and then go into a little knight, get hit, kill the little knight, go into another little knight, kill that. and then just be kind of stood there with nothing within 6 of him anymore. There's like a 12-inch bubble of death around him, and just Murder Fang chilling, having taken like.
So did he just one-shot the big knight because it just had to, so like.
Just Champions of Rust detachment with lethal.
So you hurt him, and then the knight hit you, and then you hit him back again.
In this case, he actually just one-banged it, but he then still had a full activation left after the knight like tried to stand on him with his big feet. So he didn't even need that. Like he just did, I think, 25 wounds in a single swing and just moved on. Like he's incredible. He is so good.
All right, cool. Is there any others or?
My only other honourable mention, I kind of mentioned earlier in the video. So I've already seen your list. I know all my other favourites are already in there, but I think Wolf Scouts. Like I think somebody in Discord mentioned them a while ago, the Space Wolves Discord, and I was a bit dismissive. But having like looked at them again, if you've only got 10, I would never put them in the list at the start, but every list pretty much is taking scouts. They're so good for secondary play. They're so good for letting you get scout moves off by just making a wall and securing midfield. They're in most lists. But if you've got 10 points left, upgrading a unit to Wolf Scouts gives them
Scouts.
Like genuinely, they're not bad. Like they're 4 attacks with lightning claws, which in Champions of Rust, when you getting sustains and lethals and stuff, can be really, really good. And then 3 attacks with a power weapon. I think on average they'll kill like 9 guardsmen with just the sustain.
It's not nothing.
Like they'll take an objective off a 10-man unit of T3 infantry. Like that's not nothing for a 65 or 75 point unit of scouts.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I say, you wouldn't build them. You don't add them to your list and then build the rest of your list. But if you've got 10 points left, it's better than a lot of the 10-point enhancements. And now the Fenrisian Wolves, this is what I kind of noticed it building a list for a tournament this weekend. But the Fenrisian Wolves, now they're OC0, can't do actions, can't hold objectives. I had 30 points left and 3 units of scouts. And I was like, I could just put all of them to have lightning claws and power swords instead of the Fenrisian Wolves. I'm just going to do that. Like, that's a pretty good trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely an honourable mention for me, just for that little thing of being so cheap.
Yeah, nice. All right, cool. So top 5, funnily enough, 4 of them are characters. I wanted to mention this guy because I think you never see him, but he's highly underrated because he's literally only 70 points. Is Ulrich the Slayer? He's only 70 points. He gives his unit reroll 1s to hit and wound. But if they're a character, vehicle, or monster unit, you get full rerolls to hit and full rerolls to wound. And he also busts your leadership to a 5 up as well from a 6 up. So for 70 points, you can stick him in Blood Claws and go in with 40 attacks. Strength 5, I believe, Blood Claws on the charge.
Yeah. They are absolutely
plus 1 to wounds. You could have sustained and lethal in your Champions of Russ, and you can just have full rerolls to hit and wound for 70 points, which I just think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think the only reason you don't see Ulrich in every single list is that you can only go with Blood Claws. Yeah. I think you can go with like Grey Hunters and Wolfguard, but they're just fairly bad anyway, whereas the Blood Claws are pretty okay. And then, yeah, putting them with him, I don't think there's a character, vehicle, or monster in the game that won't one-shot if the full 11-man unit gets a charge off.
Mm-hmm.
In anything except Stormlance, which you're probably not taking these guys anyway in Stormlance, but in anything that gives them extra AP, you've got, like you say, 40 attacks, which is sustained and rerolls. You're going to be getting probably 40 hits minimum. And
it's so good.
Gonna like what?
Because the problem is that Blood Claws are expensive, right? Well, they're not expensive, but like you can only run them in 10-mans.
Yeah.
So like the 140s, but so you put him in, it's 210, but they will punch up into some big stuff. So if you could use them right, it's worth it.
Yeah, I think the other thing is you normally stick them in a Rhino, so you're looking at like 285 points. But transports are really good in Pariah because a few of the secondaries you have to survive. And just wedging a
like
Rhino
sabotage and stuff.
Yeah. Just wedging a Rhino in midfield, dumping these guys out to go off and just murder whatever they see. And then you've got, if your opponent's then dumping attacks into an empty Rhino because you're doing an action, they're not shooting at anything killy, and you'll hopefully win on primary later in the game. So it's I
like Ulrich. Nice little character. So then next up, we've got Ragnar. Ragnar, amazing. I love Ragnar. So he's so who can he go in? He can go in.
Blade Guard or Assault Intercessors are like the two that you're probably doing. Blood Claws are an option. They give him an extra attack and an extra strength, but I think, does that take him to 11 attacks at strength 9?
It takes him to 11 at strength 9. If it took him to strength 10, you'd probably want him in Blood Claws more often.
Yeah.
It's just not... I think Assault Intercessors with the reroll wounds is your best bet, isn't it?
I'm honestly not sure. I think if you're taking that captain we talked about with the devastating wounds and the Black Death or something like that, that's what you're sending at the units that are on objectives anyway. I kind of like Ragnar just with a 3-man Blade Guard unit because he doesn't really buff his unit. You don't need a 6-man to take advantage of his buffs. He just gets to advance and charge then. But I've had Ragnar go into a Land Raider Redeemer and 2 of his Blade Guard died and then lobbed a grenade and I only rolled Ragnar's attacks and 1 banged the Redeemer. Like for 90 points, he is an absolute animal. It's unreal.
Yeah, he hits like a train, doesn't he? So what is he? He goes on the charge to 10 attacks?
10 attacks, 8. Strength 8, AP 3, damage 2. And then if you pop in like Lance and +1 AP, is at AP 4.
And he has sustained hits.
Yeah, sustained hits all the time. Champions Rush, you're getting like your lethals and your sustains. If you've got it with Blade Guard, you're rerolling ones to hit. So he's pretty much hitting with every attack, probably getting 11 or 12 hits with the sustained. Like he just does absolute work. And
obviously, like you said, if he joins a unit, you get advance and charge as well. So that's quite nice. An extra unit to advance and charge. So
I think in Champions of Russ, putting him with like a 3-man or 6-man, and then a captain with a 6-man Blade Guard as well. You've got 2 units that are advancing and charging turn 1. And on those kind of those maps that are a bit closer together, you can roll their advance, and if they get a 6 or a 5 and are really shooting across that no man's land, you can go for it and try that charge. I think a lot of the UKTC have good staging points now, so you don't have to fully expose yourself to try that charge. And you've got 2 units that can do it, and you don't have to spend the CP until you see the charge roll, I guess. So yeah, it's really good. I'm talking exclusive about Champions of Russ here. Just roll those advances and see where you go.
All right, cool. Then we're going to the top 3 units. So this is where I placed number 3, Underworld Cav.
Yeah.
I was always going to put these high up because of Stormlance, but they are good in all 3 detachments. They're hard to kill, they're fast. Yes, you have to go around ruins, but if you've got access to advance and charge, it's not too bad. Especially with the new pivot rules, they're on circular basis, so they pivot for free. And yeah, they're just really good in 3-man units as move blocks, or if you want to go slap something, you stick a couple of characters in. They can just really hit really hard. They're really hard to kill. And obviously with the new, brand new UKTC maps, and obviously with the WTC terrain, with the ruins where you can just go through, they're just unbelievable on that, and that's probably why we've seen them doing so well in America. But I played at a Teams event recently, and they were using the Games Workshop stuff where you just run through it was like staging a full 8-man unit of Thunderwolf characters in between these 2 ruins that I could just run through the middle.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's wild.
They are so good on GW Train. I've only played on it once or twice, but when you do get to do it, it feels like easy mode when you're used to like.
Mate. Oh, like woo!
I could just be here, completely unshootable, and then advance and charge in a straight line at you. What?
Yeah. Thunderwolves going straight through. Obviously UKTC adding them little ruins in now with the bits that you can go through will be nice for them as well. It'll give them a little buff.
Yeah, I think even if you're not running them in Stormlance, or even if you're not really running a Thunderwolf cavalry build, I ran them at a tournament a little while ago with I can't remember how many units of 3, 1 or 2 units of 3, and I just sat 1 unit of 3 on my home field because almost nothing that anyone puts in reserves can take out a 3-man unit of Thunderwolf cav. I had is it St. Celestine that like flies and has 2 constant 5 units? Yeah, that rapid ingress and came at my home field, And for 3 turns, she just kept attacking them and never took my home field because they're OC 2 each.
Get off.
Yeah, she slowly killed one, almost killed another. I killed both the Geminis or whatever they're called. And yeah, at end of turn 5, I still had 1 full health and 1 on 1 wounds, just chilling on that home field.
When I saw you doing that, putting 3 Thunderwolves on your home objective, 90 points, 6 OC. So if someone does shoot and scoot on there, a lot of them units are 5 OC. So having 6 OC, you're just like, no, you're not taking it off me.
Yeah, it's big fat bases. Like if they can come in 3 away, you can screen
Thunderwolves next turn. It was a genius. It's a genius idea, Ryan. It's a good idea. I really like it.
At 100 points, it's a bit more now than it was then, but it's still decent. Like, just what are you going to do to toughness 6, 4 wounds, 4 pinball with a shoot and scoot type unit? And then they'll come and eat you next turn because 3 of them will kill most sort of 5 model deep strike units.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone do it before until I saw you do it, but I instantly was like, it's a good idea. So we're on to his top 2. This was hard to pick which one was better, to be honest. Number 2, we've gone for Logan Grimnar. Whether that's on foot or Storm Rider, I don't really care. It's his ability. Do you want to explain what his ability does? I think you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, so he should, in my opinion, I don't know why you'd ever not have him in a list. For his 100 points to take him on foot, you could put him in deep strike, so he just cannot die until turn 3. And then once per game, even if he's not on the board, your whole army gets to reroll charges, and then your whole army basically gets Oath of Moment against every enemy unit. You get full hit rerolls, which is just for 100 points is incredible. And he's a deep striking Terminator unit. So he also drops in and does an action on that turn as well. So he's just amazing. And I do run him quite a bit on his big dog sled.
I love him on the sled.
He's so good. Like I've been using him. I think I've used him a couple of times on foot, but almost every game I take the sled because he's damage 4 on the charge.
4 on the sled. And if you do your attack sequence right, he gets you a CP back when he finishes off an enemy unit.
Yeah, I think in our last game he storm bolted a rhino for its last wound, and UCP rerolled it to stop me getting a CP and still failed it. And so I gained a CP and you lost a CP for his storm bolter shots, which that's obviously not what you're planning for. But a damage 4 axe hitting on 2 strength 8, usually with lance. Like, there's not much standing up to that.
He's got 2 doggies with him. He's basically a 2 Thunderwolf Cav with his damage 4, strength 8, 6 attacks, and his sweep 10 attacks, damage 2. Yeah. He can just clean out a unit of Marines on his own.
Yeah, absolutely. And as kind of a secondary thing, after his unit die, I usually run him with a 3-man. He's on his base is like a knight base, I think. Like he's on a massive base. Yeah. So I run him with a 3-man just so he's easier to move around. But after his unit's dead, he still gets his Terminator save. So he's on a 2-up save with 12 wounds. Toughness 6. Like, there's not much one shot in him.
I like that he's on a big base because it means all my Thunderwolves get to attack. So I still run him in a big unit because I find that I can get most of my unit to attack when usually I can. So it actually helps you get more in. So yeah, really good in a small unit, really good in a big unit, good on foot. The main thing is the reroll charges and hits on your go turn army wide. It's just mental.
I think a lot of people are taking like the little lone op lieutenant model, but for 30 extra points, you've got someone that almost does the same thing. Like it pops up and does an action, but also you get army wide reroll charges and reroll hits. I don't see why you would not have him in a list if you're playing a melee detachment.
Yeah, super good. And then finally, number 1, Bjorn. Bjorn is just an absolute legend now. Obviously, with the vector changes, he's like a tanky unit that can sit in the middle of the board and make your opponent spend an extra CP every time they want to use a strat. And he's really tanky, half damage. He's got a 5 feeling of pain, a 2-up save. So yeah, he just goes in my list now. Any list in any detachment, I just put Bjorn straight in. Don't know about you. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely, I'm same. Even before the Vec changes, I kind of did anyway. I used to have him and a Calidus, because then if you come up against an army that really relies on its battle tactics, like Marines, the first time they use armor contempt, I'm going to Vec that twice, so that's 3 CP now. That was in the old rules.
Mate, I was doing the same.
Yeah, but now in the new rules, like he's one of the only units I think that change was just an absolute flat buff. Like Calidus, you've got to risk her a little bit now and risk her dying to be able to push her forward and do it.
Calidus now you like get one time of where your opponent's going to have to spend an extra CP and then she's going to die.
Yeah.
Unless you, I mean, you can be really clever with her. Obviously, you can still put her. I don't know. You can still use a Calidus.
Yeah, I think
very hard.
Probably the cheekiest way to use a Calidus is what I think I was talking to you about earlier in the week. Like, if you're against someone that's got multiple melee strats that they want to use, something like orcs or even, I guess, some marine factions, you at the end of your opponent's movement phase, rapid ingresser behind your lines. And so anything that charges your 12-inch bubble has to spend double to do the strats, which is a pretty good use, but she's
it's cool.
So was she 90
points? Bjorn.
Exactly. If you're playing Space Wolves, just plow Bjorn in, stand him in the middle, especially in Champions of Russ, because like you said, he's half all damage and then a 5-up feel no pain. Like, unless somebody either plays Space Wolves or has played against Bjorn multiple times, almost everybody is going to undercommit on what shoots him.
100%.
And they're going to try and kill him before they go in because of that big. He's got 2-inch base, so he's on like a 26-inch aura.
The midget drum. He's a bit of a midget drum, isn't he?
He's a little guy. He's a shot king, isn't he? He's awesome. But yeah, just plow him in the middle, and then if they fail to kill him and leave him on like 3 wounds, thanks, dude. I've got 6-up feel no pain now for the rest of the rest of the game. Like,
it's really good.
It's insane in all detachments. Like in Stormlance, you're advancing and charging. He moves 8 base on this tiny little model that doesn't have to move too far to go around corners. He's got smoke screen and he's got armor contempt. So I've had him be just like standing in the middle of the board, essentially getting +2 to his save and -1 to hit, taking whole armies worth of fire and coming out of it on like 3 wounds and just angry. Like it's
legend, isn't he? Good old Bjorn. So that just about wraps everything up then. Thanks for coming on, Ryan. Really enjoyed talking to you about Wolves. I always do.
Always happy to talk Wolves.
You what, sorry?
Always happy to talk Wolves.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you've all enjoyed the video. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you did. If you want to check out any of our future events coming up, then please check out the website. It'll be in the description on the video in the link below. And we'll see you next time, guys. All right, cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.